Well, good morning. It is good to have you here this morning. I want to welcome you to the 2024 BBS Living and Learning Series. And this morning, we're going to be looking for 30 minutes at how to live optimistically. And let me get my camera on here. I don't think my camera's on. Oh, now you can see me. So, again, welcome. I want to give my gratitude to the Portsmouth, Ohio, Maysville, Kentucky, Grayson, Kentucky, Adams County, Ohio, Chambers of Commerce, and the Ashland Alliance for their sponsorship. What that means is they just promote this event to their members as an added benefit to their chamber or their alliance membership. So we are glad to have them with us as partners, and I welcome you to this. We're going to look at optimism, the joy and blessing of living in hope. So buckle your seatbelts and get ready for a wonderful ride. Here we go. First of all, I want you just to see the upcoming schedule for the rest of the year. In January, we did living in the present. In February, living in integrity. In March, living in respect. And this month, living optimistically. Those events, as well as past events over the last several years, are free of charge on the website. They're recorded, and the YouTube links are on my website, so feel free to go there. Upcoming, we're going to look at living principle centered in June. Learning to say no, that will be a fun one. Collaboration, problem solving, mastering self-talk, reinventing yourself, and embracing change. So I'm just loving this year and loving what we're doing, and look forward to having all of you there. Please promote this and share this with other people and encourage them to come along. So where are we headed? Well, you know you're going to see the rules of the game, but I always try to apply these rules to the current topic. So in terms of optimism, you need to own it. What does this mean? Many people that I coach and work with, and many human beings that I work with and counsel with and friends carry the idea that optimism is something that you inherit from your parents, that it is a genetic thing, that I'm either an optimistic person or a pessimistic person. It's just kind of one of like I'm a blue-eyed or brown-eyed, I'm tall or I'm short, and I'm optimistic or I'm pessimistic. Now, I'm no bioscientist. I can't tell you whether there's some genetic scientist. I don't know if there's a genetic tendency to optimism or pessimism. There probably is something there. But I will say this: if you tend to be a downer, if you tend to be a negative person or not an optimistic person, you can change that. It is a habit, and it is a habit process. It may be a little more difficult for you to change than other people, but what I want you to see here right now is that you need to own this. You need to say, if this is to be, it's up to me. And so ownership mentality instead of a victim mentality. Second, participation for the next 30 minutes, 100%. And I would go as far as to say 100% participation means at the end of this, you are going to choose, based on what you've learned or been reminded of, an action to take, something to do differently that will move you towards optimism. Third, please drop the I know, and just become very curious and interested in this. Again, what you carry out of this meeting is up to you. And I would suggest to get the most out of it, you just come in open-minded with a curiosity. You don't know anything about optimism, or the little bit you do know, you're going to set aside and just come with an open mind. And finally, we're going to be optimistic today. We're going to choose to have fun. Fun is a choice, just like optimism. And if you will choose to own it, choose to participate 100%, choose to get rid of your I know and be curious, and then be optimistic and have some fun today. Choose that. You'll get the most out of this. That's why we set the rules. It's how to play the best game and to get the most done. So let me move forward here. And what I want to look at now is an introduction. And I want to talk about a man named Admiral Stockdale. Vice Admiral James Stockdale was shot down during the Vietnam War, and he spent 7.5 years in a brutal prison camp. He spent 4 of those years in a solitary confinement and 2 years in leg irons. This is back in the Vietnam War. He was tortured 15 times. Stockdale heroically embraced his role as the clandestine commanding officer of what became hundreds of prisoners. So even in that prison situation, he was their leader. In the book Good to Great by Jim Collins, he talks about this thing called the Stockdale paradox, and it really fits what we have to talk about today. Stockdale said that naive optimism got you killed in those camps. Some guys thought they'd get out by Christmas. When Christmas came, that went by. Then they thought they'd get out by Easter. And when Easter came, it went. Then it was Thanksgiving. Then and then and then again, and they lost hope and they died. Stockdale explained that the people who survived did something very different. And that's what I'm proposing to you today, a version of optimism called brutal optimism. They knew absolutely that they would eventually be free, and they knew that it was not going to happen anytime soon. Stockdale himself knew that it would be at least 5 years, but he knew the day would come. And so, folks, what they did is they put their hope on that future joy of release, and that's what pulled them through that very horrible, difficult time. It's the Stockdale paradox, and here it is. Utter confidence in an inevitable success, and also utterly keeping your eyes wide open, humbly embracing the reality that it may not happen soon, and it may not happen immediately, and it may not be easy. That's the kind of optimism we're talking about today. Stockdale put it this way. This is a very important lesson. You must never confuse faith that you will prevail in the end, which you can never afford to lose, with the discipline to confront the most brutal facts of your current reality, whatever they may be. That's the heart and soul of true optimism and confidence. And that's the kind of confidence and optimism that I'm talking about today. One of the offers today is I will send you that article about Admiral Stockdale, so you can have it and look at it again and read it now and then just to remind yourself. So I want to define optimism. This is a very simple definition. It's the choice to view circumstances in the best light that they can be. Admiral Stockdale viewed his circumstances in this light. We will prevail. We will get out. But I'm not going to put a date on it. And I know that it's going to take time. And I know that it's going to be rough. So he's brutally honest with the facts and what he's facing. And he's choosing to look at it in the best light possible and in an optimistic way. That's what we're talking about this morning. This raises a question. Is it wise to always be optimistic? Is it wise to always be optimistic? I'm going to say there's a downside to airy fairy positive mental attitude and affirmation. As a coach for the last 22 years, I've been schooled in positive mental attitude and affirmations. Perhaps they have their place. I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm just saying I think they can be a bit deceptive. People who only look at the bright side of things and only look at the upside, I don't think they are realistic. I think they're setting themselves up for some failure because they're setting an unrealistic expectation on what's going on. That is not the optimism that I'm talking about today. In fact, I'm going to even make a stronger statement here. Hopeful expectation can be a form of denial and avoidance. Some people use a positive mental attitude to avoid dealing with problems. In other words, oh, it'll be okay. We don't need to work on it. We just won't talk about it. We just won't deal with it. It'll probably get better. Folks, things don't really always get better on their own. In fact, the tendency, based on the law of entropy, is for things to deteriorate without positive action. And so we're not talking about a passive positive attitude where we don't deal with problems. Brutal optimism that I've shared with the Admiral Stockdale story is the sweet antidote. It's looking clearly at what's going on. It's evaluating and seeing the challenges and even the dangers involved, and then choosing to persevere and absolutely get through it and get from it and be optimistic. That is what we're talking about this morning. We need to base our happiness, our positive feelings, our positive mentality on who we choose to be, not based on the circumstances. And folks, this is true ownership. If you can get this lesson this morning, it will be transformational to your life and to your service and to your relationships and into your blessing in life. If you will base your optimism, your positive feelings and mental attitude on your choices, in other words, I choose to be a gracious person. I choose to be a kind person. I choose to be a hardworking person. I choose to be a proactive person, regardless of what the circumstances are. Then you can find a happiness that comes from who you can always choose your response. You can always choose who you want to be. You cannot control and choose circumstances. We're not in control of other people. We're not in control what goes on around us all the time. But we can be in control of what we hold in our hearts and in our minds. And that's ownership and that's true happiness. And it can be consistent and it can be there all the time. So, how do you do that? How do we stay in that mental state of optimism, especially when we're facing difficult situations, stressful situations? Well, I'm going to start with a very practical suggestion is that you choose to begin your day and end your day well. And here's the coaching question with that suggestion. What are your daily rituals? In other words, what are the consistent things you do every morning and you do every evening? And you might say, well, Dave, I don't really have anything like that. Well, what are things that you could do consistently every morning and every evening to shift your mental state of mind and the way you view life and your day? It's a choice in the morning of who I choose to be today. And you make that choice every day. You don't make it one time 10 years ago and then try to live off of that. This is something that we deal with every single day. And I like to think of the beginning of the day as the beginning of my life and the end of my day as the end of my life And then if I'm blessed, I get another day tomorrow, another life tomorrow. But how am I going to begin the day? How do I end the day? What are your daily rituals? Second, I can't talk about this subject personally without bringing this principle to bear. I look to my creator for confidence and hope. I don't look to self-confidence myself. I don't look to me for the end all answers. I look up. I look in the scriptures and I look upward to my Savior and my Lord. What is your spiritual practice? That's my question, my coaching question. How do you look at somebody greater than you to help you through life? I find a great hope and optimism because I have my faith in Christ. Third, living on purpose. How do you stay optimistic? You need to have a clear why, a clear vision. And I'd suggest something bigger than yourself. I think the greatest joy and happiness comes when we're serving, when we're bringing value to other people. Do you have that defined? How you would love to bring value to other people, how you would love to serve and make a difference. When people are making a difference and living on purpose, they tend to be much more optimistic because they've got something to go for bigger than themselves. Fourth, choose to be happy. And you're saying, okay, Dave, that's what we're looking at. How do I do that? Well, it's a practice, it's a discipline. Choose joy and choose gratitude in every situation. I always use this example as gasoline prices go up and down. So let's just say gas gets to $6 a gallon. I haven't seen it that high, but let's just pretend around here that it gets to $6 a gallon. What is your choice of feeling and thought as you fill your tank? Here's mine. An optimistic view of that is I am thankful and joyful that I have been blessed and provided with the means to fill my gas tank. It may be $100 to fill that tank. There are people that struggle to fill their tank. I am joyful and thankful that I'm able and that I have been provided the means to do that. Do you see it? You can look at the glass half empty. You can look at the glass half full. I tend to look at the glass as 100% full. It's half full of liquid and half full of air. 100% full glass is a lot more optimistic than a half empty glass or even a half full glass. There's always another way to take two breaths and say, how could I look at this to raise my energy, to raise my spirit? And we're not talking about that airy fairy positive mental attitude and ignoring the facts and not dealing with the problems. What we're saying is in the middle of the stress and the challenge and the difficulty, I'm going to choose to view the circumstances as the best they can be. The next one here, the fifth one here, limit or eliminate negative media influence. What are you feeding your mind is the question. Now, I said media influence. I'm not just talking about news of the day. I like to be informed, but a little bit goes a long way. Sitting and listening to news of what's happening in the world over and over and over again, I find does not lead to optimism. And I'm going to include how picky and selective are you in your social media? I find there are people that are so caught up in social media, and I especially think of young people nowadays. The suicide rates have gone up for young girls, especially that are just so tied to this social media. They don't have a filter, and they start to have all these negative thoughts and feelings about themselves as they do this unrealistic comparison with other people. And so the bottom line here is, what am I saying? How do you choose to be optimistic? You have to limit or eliminate negative media influence. You need to wake up and consider what you're feeding yourself. If you eat junk, you're going to be unhealthy. If you think junk, you're not going to be optimistic. You have to make choices throughout the day about what you let in and what you don't let in. It's just very common sense, but always not common practice. And as a coach, when I'm working with people, I ask them questions about what media they're exposing themselves to, and what are they listening to, and what are they watching, and who are they having conversations with. And all of that thinking is what creates our feelings. If we don't have an optimistic, upbeat feeling, it's because we're thinking negative, down things. Now, again, I need to remind you, we need to think negatively sometime. We need to deal with problems. We don't need to hide our head in the sand and just be airy fairy, positive little smiley faces. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a brutal discipline of choosing hope and optimism in the face of challenges. So you walk away from this morning. In about 10 minutes, we're going to be finished. What is the result? If you choose to embrace and practice optimism, you come to a choice and a decision here this morning that you say, this is a good way to be. I need to work on this. I want to work on this. What could happen? What will happen? Well, this is just fact. You will start to stimulate and release creative thought. The creative side of our mind and our brain is shut down in a pessimistic environment. And this is true for teams as well as individuals. When you're in a negative situation, a negative feeling, a negative thought process, an overly critical thought process, creative thought gets hampered and shut down. We need better solutions. We need better thinking because there are bigger problems to deal with these days. How do we stimulate and release creative thought? Well, one way is beginning that day and ending that day with joy and with gratitude, and it's engendering that in our teams and in our culture. If you're working in a culture that's not positive, not upbeat, not hopeful, I'm saying choose to be a leader and start to influence that in others. And the best way to influence is to inspire it by being the change you want to see. Be an optimistic, upbeat person, and you will stimulate and release creative thought in yourself and others. Second, you will energize. You become a fountain and not a drain. You become a light instead of a shadow. In other words, you energize the perseverance and resilience needed as we face challenges. Folks, life is full of challenges and problems and issues to solve. That's why you have a job. That's why you have a purpose. If everything was perfect, there was nothing that needed to be done, what would be the point of us being around? So, how do I get the energy I need to persevere and to be resilient? It's by embracing optimism and practicing it. And third, you will increase your influence as a leader. The fact is, people want to follow optimistic people. They don't typically want to follow pessimists. People who have a negative, downer view of everything are not typically the people they don't want to be around them. They don't feel good around them. If you want to have influence with others, if you want to lead others, if you want to make a difference with others, this is an essential practice and discipline to become optimistic. And I want you to hear my words that this is a practice. This is something you work at. This isn't just natural. It's being disciplined in what you listen to and what you think and how you start your day and how you end your day. And as you practice these things, you will start to be a more optimistic person. So Let me bring this together. 3 questions that I want you to consider from this brief presentation this morning. First question, and if you got a pen or a pencil or something to write with and you're able to do that right now, I would suggest it. What have you learned or been reminded of today? Most of this stuff is common sense. It's probably not new to you, but some light bulb went off in your head today. Something caught your attention. What is that? Just jot that down or make a mental note. Here's what I've been reminded of today. Second question, more important question. What specific change will you make starting today? In other words, a lot of us hear sermons, we hear inspirational speaking, we get good ideas, maybe something we read. None of that is useful until we take action, until we do something. What habit do you want to start today? What do you want to do differently today that you haven't been doing? And third, who can you encourage and bring hope to today? You know, when you share your optimism, it grows. What you share and what you look for gets bigger. And I want you to think right now of someone that you can provide some encouragement to today and bring some hope and some optimism to today and a little bit of conversation. And that would be a great outcome from our time together. So, what have you learned or been reminded of? What specific action or change will you make starting today? And who can you encourage and bring hope to today? That's what we have. And here are the 3 offers that go with today. First of all, if you want a copy of that slide or these slides, just email me. I'll send it to you as a PDF. Second, I think I've picked out 6 or 7 articles that I've written through the years about this subject that really, we have 30 minutes this morning. So this is a little more detailed, and it's also a summary of some of the things we've talked about. I can send you all those articles. All you have to do is just ask for them. And third, if you really want to face this issue head on, maybe get some habits in place, maybe really get your head around this and clarity around this, a conversation. And I'm saying a conversation with me. I've worked with people in this area for 22 years. And if you'll just ask for it, I'll be glad to take 30 or 40 minutes on a Zoom call and just talk with you. That's my existence. That's my purpose. That's my mission, is to serve and help as many people as I can every day. And so I love to do that. So this is my email address, davebeam@mentordavebeam.com. That's how you can get in touch with me. That's how you can request a copy of the slides, the articles, and if you want a conversation, you can request that as well. And then I'll give me a day and time or some days and times that would be good for you. And I'll send you a Zoom invite back, and we'll have some face-to-face time that way. And I can help you improve your attitude and your optimism, just through some conversation, just through some questions. So that brings us to the end of our half hour today. Thank you for being here. I hope that's been an encouragement and a blessing to you. So we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.